The ringer off. Well, if you see me, then you won't be seeing my father today. That is my commentary. So let me lower this. Point it down so it looks at me a little bit better. And then I shall sit and I shall talk to you all. And the question of the title of the sermon is These Things Must Be, or How to Be with These Things. Don't know which one we're going to go with. I have started the week off, the day off. It's been an eventful time, is all I can say. I've been in more arguments online. Well, not really arguments. I just love the debate. So I'm like, hey, I'm not mad at you. I just like to make the point. You come at me, I come at you, but I'm not mad. Although some people really do get mad. I be like, if you get mad, just sit this one out, because I like differing opinions. I invite the debate. Do you disagree with me? Please, I don't need you to agree with me. I like the challenge because I might be wrong. You might be wrong. We together might both be wrong. And we can help ourselves find the truth or whatever. But that's my week, and it's just tired. Been to court a lot, still recuperating from the trial. I realize now that I'm getting old. That's the only point I can say is that I used to love to go to court. I loved it like you don't even know. I look forward to court. When I wasn't in court, I was like, man, I can't wait to get back in court. My family would say to me some days, you need a trial. You need to be in court because you're getting on our nerves. Because that's how much I would just be, what do you mean by that? Cross-examination. Explain that. I don't understand. I was a nut. I am now at the age, and I have now achieved all that I wanted to achieve, at least experientially. I wanted to try cases. I've tried more than I think. I wanted to handle appeals. I have done appeals, at least to the Georgia Supreme Court and the Georgia Court of Appeals. There's case law with my name assigned to it. I am happy about that. I have tried, not that I wanted to be involved in a death penalty case, not to say that I want to have anybody executed, but I did have a death penalty case that I was involved in, and I was trying to have someone executed. And I will say it was a very poignant moment because something funny happened in court that time. In court, everybody laughed. It was a genuine moment of laughter. And we were all laughing, the judge, the bailiffs, the defense, prosecution, the defendant, and it was a horrible crime. And I remember as we were all laughing, at one point, the defendant and I locked eyes while we were laughing. And it was like the first moment was, this is really funny. And I'm glad we're connecting. And the second moment was, but if you have your way, you're going to kill me. And then for me, it was everything I've done in my life. Every lesson I've learned, everything I've done has brought me to this moment where I'm trying to use those skills to get rid of you. And it was in that moment that we stopped smiling and we stopped laughing and we just and then we just looked back and we just rejoined what was happening in the courtroom. And that moment has stuck with me. I even looked up where he is to see if, what happened, because I left to go to New York because my wife got into med school. And so I left early before that case was over. And I saw that they took a plea. But the interesting thing about that was I wanted to work on a death penalty case. I'd been in the courtroom when other lawyers in my office had handled death penalty cases. But I had never done a death penalty case. That seemed to be the highest, serious kind of case that you could do. I mean, it is still. And there I was on the team. And it was an interesting moment to look someone in the eye and go, wow, if I win, you die. And if you win, well, you don't. And I was like, wow. But these things must be, I suppose, in our system. That's our legal system. Then I went to New York, so I didn't have to actually go through all of that. And it was an interesting thing. I thought I was right. I thought we were right. But then I thought, were we right? One of my lawyers that was there, I seen him try the death penalty work cases. John was his name, first name. And he said, hey, man, I don't care. He says, we have a death penalty case. If we have the death penalty, then I'll do it. And if we don't have the death penalty, then we'll do whatever else we do. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm there to do it. And I was just like, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. Then it made me think, well, then do we need it? If it's just such a thing that if it is, we'll do it. If it's not, we won't. I'm like, well, then do we really need it at all? Got me into some deep philosophical stuff, but that's neither here. That's not part of the topic of the sermon. But it's just things that I've been thinking about this week. I wanted to be a lawyer who tried a case in another state, be able to, hey, drop me off at the airport. I'm gonna take my bag with my cases and my stuff and walk through the airport looking all sophisticated, like we all about business. I'm going to try a case. I'm out here. I'm important, you're important. Get on the plane, did all of that. Tried a case for 2-3 weeks in Connecticut. It's supposed to be a week. I was there for 3. The Lord gave me triple what I asked for. So it was good measure, pressed down, shaking together, and running over. So I don't want to do that again. I don't ever want to go out of state to try a case ever in life. That's not necessary. But I achieved that goal. And once I achieved that goal, I said, I'm done. So now when they say, Kirby got court, I'm like, I got court? Man, is there some way that we can avoid going to court? Can we work this out with a phone call? But I achieved those things. Again, but I guess those things had to be for me. I wanted to try cases in New York. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to New York and live. Just always wanted to, but never saw a way to. But then we did. And there I was in New York. And I'm like, wow. When I look back over things, I'm like, man, all these little dots and people I met in my life along the way, I didn't even know it until I got there, had prepared me for everything that I did. You ever just look at your life sometimes and just go, you know what? I never in a million years would have thought I would be in this particular position or situation. But I remember running into somebody and we were talking about it and they said some things, which at the time, I had no idea that would ever have any value in my life. And suddenly it has immense value in your life. And I think that is God ordering our steps. Do you understand? So that, and when they say the steps of a righteous man, ordered by the Lord, I think to myself, well, the steps of a righteous man, am I a righteous man? Well, I don't know. I mean, y'all know everything I do. I mean, I might not meet the standard of righteousness, but then I realized whom the Son set free is free indeed. And I have been redeemed. So yes, I guess I am righteous. And all of these events, I mean, even down to stuff when I was a child, I look back on things that happened in my life now and interacting with my own kids growing up. And I'm like, man, who knew that encounter when I was in the 5th grade and I will remember them. I'll be like, I remember this. Not I remember this situation with whatever was happening in my life, but I remember this situation happening in someone's life. And it prepared me for this moment. So that in this moment, it is new to me, but not unfamiliar to me. And I know how to look around, how to navigate this path we're on, or have a better, clear understanding where not to go. Sometimes I tell people, you may not be able to tell me which way to go, but tell me which way not to go. I mean, don't go around that corner. Okay, cool. I can't tell you how to get there, but I can definitely tell you if you go around there, you won't get there. Cool. I'm good with that. I had those types of experiences. And so I say all that to say that looking back, I thought all those things in my life that sometimes I question had to be. They just had to be to equip me for what is in my life now. And I know it and sometimes people might say, you're just drawing correlations and you're just connecting dots. Yeah, but what are the odds that particular dot was a dot I actually needed? You understand what I'm saying? Like somebody says, you never experienced this. Well, nobody. But I met this one guy who did, and we had a conversation. And lo and behold, here I am experiencing that same thing. That was a God appointment. And it was a thing that had to be pleasant or unpleasant. Now, that kind of brings me on a little further on. So this week, I am one, and this sermon is going to kind of drop around, a sermon, talk, speech, whatever you want to call this, a little talk. I had one thing I was going to write. In fact, I wrote that sermon during church because sometimes when I'm in church and some of the preachers preaching, my mind it triggers things in my head. I just start thinking, I see things clearer. You know what I'm saying? Like you get what my dad is talking, Ulysses is talking. I'm like, I hear what y'all are saying. Suzette was speaking one time. You Dr. Driver, I'm like, I hear what y'all are saying, but what you're saying connects to something that was in my mind that I needed to, I couldn't figure it out, but man, I see a connection. It just opened the door like, hey, on your way here, let me just show you in this room right here. And I'm like, this is the room I need to be in. So I started writing it down. I actually have a folder on this little tablet here called Notes, I think it was called Thoughts from Church, which aren't my notes of a sermon. It's the thoughts that I get during church from the sermon, because I'm like, that's my brain. That's the Lord telling me, hey, you hear this, I may not understand, hold on, not that my father preaches a hold on sermon, but I'm just saying, or, let's refresh our recollection. Let's think about the things. I get up in the morning, I rehash the things that the Lord has done. I don't do that. But when I hear him say that, in that moment, it triggers in my mind. Because when I get up in the morning, I'm like, I got to go. I got to go to court. What time is it? Okay, are the kids out? Okay, everything's good. I got the dog walk. I mean, I got a whole bunch of things going on, and I'm thinking about traffic, and I'm asking Google how long it's going to take me to get to the courthouse. And I'm like, oh my goodness. It took me an hour and a half to get to Cobb County the other day. I left my house at 7:48 in the morning. I still got there at 9:20. I'm like, how's that possible? Google told me an hour and 7 minutes. So I now know this. Google ain't God. Don't believe what Google says. Just know Google gives you suggestions. But that was what happened to me. But all of these things had to be. But I get those notes. So I'm just encouraging you that if you get notes, if you get thoughts doing church, it's not distraction. That's the time when I think your spirit is most receptive. And God been like, I've been trying to tell you something. I've been trying to talk to you for a minute. I've been trying to impress some things upon you. And now we're here and you're supposed to pay attention and you're thinking, I got to pay attention. It's like, no. Right now, you in my house. There's a conversation going on, but I'm also talking to you. And I want to talk to you right here, right now about something. And I begin to make those notes. So I encourage you, if that happens to you, I'm not saying it'll happen to you while I'm talking to you, but I'm saying if it happens to you, be mindful of those. I think that's the perfect time. It's not that you're not listening, it's that you're actually listening. And what happens in here is important. Again, I think those things must be. Now, this week, I looked at a lot of stuff going on. And this comes the part where I jump around. So you all are prepared now for the jumps. When I was a child, I used to read about the story of the fall of man. Genesis chapter 3. We go through, the serpent, Satan asking Eve, the God. And I thought about the question he asked. I read it from the Common English Bible today. He didn't say, did the Lord say, if you eat of that tree? He said, did the Lord say that if you eat of any tree? And Eve said, no, I'm correcting you. He said, if we only eat of that tree. It's like, And I just thought, I said, that's an interesting way. Someone can you're going to say what the Lord said, but you're not saying it with the mindset that I need to really understand what's going on right now. You understand? Something can come into your life and it asks you a question that challenges you about a promise, a word, a hope, a thought. And you're like, oh, and you might, and it's really a negative. Like you might think, like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, did the Lord really tell you to do this? Are you really in the right spot? And we'll think, well, the Lord told me, and then you don't even realize I'm engaging you in a conversation that takes me away from my purpose. I don't have to answer this question. It's unnecessary. I have to cling to that which the Lord has told me. And in that moment, I thought, well, if God knows all, did he know? And this is one of those philosophical debates. Did he know that that man would fall? You ever think about that? Like, worthy is the lamb slain from the foundation of the earth. Well, why would you slay him from the foundation? You must have known what was going to happen. So could it be? And I'm just saying could. It's a question. It's not a theological pronouncement of yes, because when you research online, you get all kinds of things. And I'm like, I don't look for answers that I'm comfortable with. I look for answers, period. And because when you look for answers you're comfortable with, you sometimes disregard answers that are true because you're not comfortable with the truth. An uncomfortable truth is rejected. Or as they say one of my training things, somebody said, a confused mind does nothing. So if you're confused, you'll do nothing. If it seems foreign to you, you might react angrily because it's making you uncomfortable. So I learned to be uncomfortable and accept uncomfortable thoughts or thoughts that I'm like, well, what theology? What's your theology? I'm like, I just want to know the answer right now. Let me just let everything is on the table and then we'll start knocking them off. But I thought about that. Then I said, well, that must have been because Jesus' birth was prophesied. Genesis chapter 3:15, when he told Satan, her sons, their offspring, their children their heel will bruise your head. In fact, he's telling the serpent, hey, we're going to win. They're going to win. There's going to be a reconciling, a recompense. I like using that word. I never quite, my father-in-law used to say words like recompense and things like that. I used to always say, man, these Jamaicans talking King James English all the time. But he would say stuff like that. Isaiah 7:14. The Lord will give you a sign. A virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. Now, here's the thing about Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. That was 700 years before Jesus was born. Just take a moment and think that through. Because you see it referenced in the New Testament, but 700 years before Jesus was born, it was prophesied that he would be born of a virgin. He would conceive and give birth. And I thought, man, these things really must be. So whatever happened pre those 700 years, leading up to those 700, we know this much. Jesus was going to be born, and it was prophesied. Now, why wasn't he born that week? Why wasn't he born within the time that word came out? What did I get from that? Sometimes you get words in your life, and you're like, it just seems to me that it can't be, because the passage of time has made it seem like it's not going to happen. But the passage of time sometimes must be. Do you understand? Because it must be for a lot of reasons. Maybe it's the people you need to meet. Like I just told you at the beginning, maybe it's the life experiences you have to have before you're able to even walk in that situation. Because if you put me, when I first started practicing law, when I first started practicing law and said, Kirby, you're going to go to another state and try a case, I was totally unprepared for that at the time. I had to go through some stuff. I had to learn Georgia law. I had to go to New York and be a Georgia lawyer, being put on the front lines in New York when I didn't know New York law, and learn New York law. Those things had to be. I had to learn how to deal with, people who had problems with their kids, people whose marriages were not going well, to kind of go, I see how you all had your dispute and what's going on. And I know now that when I am in a situation like this with my wife, we're not going to do that. And so we don't repeat. In our household, we don't repeat the mistakes that other people made that we may have encountered in our past. Because and I'm not saying those things must have been for them, but God put them in our lives. And I'm saying, look back on your life and think about that. So when you're sitting there saying to yourself, I can't believe I'm here right now in my life. I didn't think I'd be here. And if you've ever said that before in your life, if there's ever a time where you've just been sitting there sometimes and saying, I cannot believe this is happening to me right here, right now. I thought this was supposed to happen. I thought that was supposed to happen. Of all the things I thought that would come to pass, this was not one of them. Whatever you say, whatever you go through, sometimes if you look at it through the lens of these things must be, these things had to be, because you had to be equipped and prepared to deal with that moment. Because a promise and preparation are not synonymous. But I'm going to give you $1 million. If you gave 21-year-old Kirby $1 million, 22-year-old Kirby would have been broke. You understand what I'm saying? Now, you give 59-year-old Kirby $1 million. If I live to be 212, I'm still going to have some of that money. And you're like, how you still got money? Because I lived a life where I learned how to navigate this journey. And so certain things don't have to be, because I met people who were broke. I met people who had money and lost it. I tell people now, I don't even do estate planning. I say, let me share some points from my life. When people want to quote the Bible, I'm like, the Bible's about things that it helps you to navigate this journey. So I would say to you, sometimes navigate the journey, but take those lessons and share them with other people, because it is a testament. And I'm borrowing a phrase, I'm turning a phrase. For me, it is the testament of Kirby. Kirby can tell you what Kirby went through, and Kirby can tell you what I saw and what I experienced and what someone else told me. I can tell you somebody else's experience and the lessons I gleaned from them. But I'm giving you that, and I think God put me there just for that purpose. I told somebody, I said, don't give your kid, don't, if you're gonna do a will or whatever, don't just give your 20-something-year-old kids or teenage kids all their money at once. Set it up to be paid out over some time. Because the first year they're gonna blow it. And the second year, when they blow it the first year, the second year they're gonna come along and they're gonna blow it again, just gonna take them longer. By that third time, they're gonna be like, you know what? I realize that I got some friends that keep helping me spend this money, but aren't here when I don't have the money. So I need to get rid of those friends. And you know what? I also realized I bought some stuff that's just sitting there gathering dust. I didn't need that. Yeah. So by the third time, you're a little more judicious. But depending on how much money you left them, they might be out. I know some folks who were out of the money pretty quick. But my point is, those things had to be. And those experiences led us on. And so I think God brings us there. Now, but like I said, 700 years from the prophecy to Jesus being born under the circumstances that the Bible that it was prophesied in Isaiah. What does that mean? That means we don't live 700 years. So if God's going to give you a word, he's going to fulfill it. It's not going to be on them 700-year promises like that you're going to come back. I was here 700 years ago and the Lord told me, no, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So don't get discouraged. Think differently. Open your mind to be uncomfortable. Maybe the way you visualize it happening is not the way that the Lord said it was going to happen. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I visualize it happening this way. Okay. I get that you visualize it happening that way, but look at really what happened. And you're like, wow. Now that I realize it, today my wife and I were remarking. Because you don't know, I've been here. Y'all seen me, y'all know I've gone up and down the weight scale. And I've been up, my highest, I was 330. And I remember I was down to like we got on 295. I was in the 295, 305 rotation for a while. It just seemed like that was just like, I'm just here. I 305, diet, 295. 305, 295. 294, woo, 305. It could happen in a week. And I used to fantasize. I would say, my goal weight is 250. That was my goal. But I couldn't see at 295, 250. That was 45 pounds away. How am I going to lose 45 when I'm gaining and losing the same 10? I mean, I put the 10 down, I pick it back up. I lose the weight, it finds me. I mean, and now granted, I helped it find me by eating the food I was eating, but I'm just saying, that happened to me. I weighed myself. I'm 250 pounds. And I remember saying to my wife, this morning, I was 250.2. I remember saying to my wife, I said in my mind, I said, all these diets I get on, I get discouraged because I have a way of what I think is going to happen. And I'm telling you, this is a real life story for you so that you understand when the promises of the Lord come to you, like I had this vision in my mind, yeah, but you get discouraged because you can't see how it's going to come to pass. How is it going to come to pass? Well, the Lord said it's going to happen. These things must be. So once I said in my mind, well, this is going to happen. And I decided, I said, you know what, I'm going to lose weight the same way I got fat. I'm going to have fun. Up until then, it was, can't eat this, I can't eat that, got to measure this, no carbs. Oh, Lord, I love my carbs. Can't do this, no fat. We went through vegan time, nothing with a face. That included fish. I mean, who knew? I mean, I guess fish do have faces, but I just thought fish was safe. My wife's like, no fish. I did the vegan thing, the bean curd or the tofu, some other thing we call it. I don't know what it is. It's like some kind of nut. It was in some weird shape. It was whatever, it was nasty, but I did it. You know, tempeh. That's what it's called, tempeh. Tempeh is not a friend of Kirby. I dread it all. Mushroom, I do like mushroom. I did all of that. And I was just like, I will never be 250. Because I got down to 285. I lived at 285 for years. I was like, 285. I want to be 250. I would sit there on the scale and imagine 5 pounds this week. I'll lose 5 pounds next week. I'll lose 5 pounds. No, that never happened. Ever in life. And I just said, I'm going to set my mind to be like me. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. Just not going to eat like I used to eat. That's the only difference. Meat became an ingredient as opposed to a dish. I'm not going to get a steak. We got a steak. We sliced it up, mixed it in. I cooked out of a wok. I did all of that. And so then I didn't even think about the weight loss anymore. I just walked in the belief. I just walked in faith, if you will. And I'm 250. Now, I also realized this. 250 was my goal. But clearly, when I'm at home, I'm like, wait a minute. I look good like this when I got my clothes on, but 250, I'm just a smaller fat man. That's what I thought to myself. I used to be big and fat. Now I'm littler, but still fat. And I'm like, I don't necessarily like this 250. Why? Because I limited in my mind what the goal was, what God had in store for me. So that's why I say these things must be, as you were going through it with the promises and you think, this is how that promise looks. No, that's how you conceptualize that promise from your viewpoint of an unfulfilled promise. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't have it. Like people who've never been rich. When I get rich, this is what I'm going to do. Well, you ain't never been rich. You're just imagining stuff about what it means to be rich. When I have a family, this is going to happen. You just imagining stuff. Well, my child would never do that. You ain't never had children. Because when you get them, amazingly enough, they're not going to be like you imagine. The kids in your head and the kids in your life are two different kids. Trust me. And that's even if they are the best kids possible, they are still, unless you're just an ogre and your kids are terrified of you. And we'll talk about it in a minute. But I'm just saying, don't limit the promises and the word of God in your life to your ability to conceptualize or what you're able to conceptualize of. Because when you get to the point where you're like, this is what I was looking for, you're going to be like, you know what? This is actually not it. And it's not it. I'm still going to lose some more weight. I mean, I'm glad I'm 250. You know, I'm enjoying it. I'm on the last belt loop on my belt that I bought. I remember when I bought this belt from Walmart. I remember buying this belt. And the other day I was walking and my pants I was like, my pants keep falling down. And I was like, let me do one more. I'm on the last belt loop. And I was like, there we go. Last belt loop. But now some of even my shirts I bought, I'm like, this is amazing. I bought these shoes. Now, Suzette told me, when you lose weight, your feet get a little, I never had fat feet to begin with, but now my shoes, I'm like, my feet, they don't go back like this, back and forth. They kind of go side to side. And she goes, because your feet lost weight. I'm like, my feet lost weight. All right. Now I got to go buy new shoes. But it's a good problem to have. But I'm saying this to say to you, look back over your life, even the things that you say to yourself, why was that? Why did I go through that? It might be because you can help someone else who's going to be going through that someday. And let's have testimony time at church. People will give testimony. And I was young, I'd be like, what's all these testimonies? Everybody telling me, one person gonna say the same story. One person going, everybody up here, I was down and I was out. And I'd be like, well, I ain't never been down. I ain't never been struggling. So I did not understand what they were talking. I could not conceptualize what they were talking about. Then I got older. And amazingly enough, I was like, you know what? I remember when this lady was in church talking about, I didn't know how I was going to get the lights cut on. If you ever had your lights cut off before, you'd be like, Lord, I've had my lights cut off. I'm going to tell you that right now. It would start the law practice and start the medical practice at the same time. Times were lean at times. I used to have clients who call me, I'm bringing money by. I'd be sitting in my office 8 o'clock at night trying to call, are you on your way? I love you. Because I needed that money. I done been through it, but I didn't know what that was. And I thought people who go through that, y'all, that's the life of y'all. Then I was in a big meeting with lawyers trying to make money and learn how to have practices that were very profitable. And the guy said, how many of y'all make this money? But at the end of the day, when you look at how much you take home, and he was breaking it down. And then all these lawyers, we're at this fancy hotel. You think we're all looking all fancy and wealthy? The number of hands that went up was just like, I'm like, look around there. Every hand was up. And I'm like, yes, I've had clients. Doctors were clients in some of my defense cases. They'd be like, I never imagined I'd be here in my life. I'm a doctor. My practice, this is my overhead per month. And they tell you like, my overhead per month is $100,000. And you're like, you pay $100,000 a month just to stay in business. That's salaries, everything. And the guy's like, but I'm in over my head. I'm getting sued over a debt because I couldn't pay my bills. And then I kind of go, you generate $100,000 a month, but you don't make that. And I'm like, okay. So the myth that they told you in medical school and the like, you're going to be wealthy and the things people perceive, or is it true? So don't let somebody tell you no one can tell you when you were in your land of plenty, your land of milk and honey. If they tell you, you're in the land of milk and honey as far as they're concerned, because they've never been there. They never done anything to get them on that path to that land. And not a negative, it just wasn't the path for them. You can't tell me when I'm there. Because your vision is probably going to be just like my vision, which is short-sighted and not recognizing that there's a true land of milk and honey. I'm not going to stop outside the gate. I'm going to keep on going until I get in there, where I know I'm in there. Like I know I'm 250, and I know that this is not the weight I need to be at. I got to lose weight. I got to lose more. So I'm like, well, what's my new goal? I know how little I don't want to get. I want to still stay in the twos. So I figure 225. That's 25 more pounds. But hey, coming from 333, I remember 333. I remember that number. And I remember 328. I remember those two were my big numbers. I could see how to get there, but I couldn't believe that I could get there. And it seemed incomprehensible to be here. And yet here I sit, now saying this was not the goal. But these things must be. I had to be, when I was 300, then I became 295. Then I became 285. Then I was 275. Like, are you 275? Yeah, but in order to get below 275, and I'm starting above 275, I'm going to have to hit 275. That must be. So don't look at these things that are going in your life and look at the number and the measure and say to yourself, how am I here? Well, because you were not where you wanted to be, but you had to pass through this to get to where you're going to be. And so understanding that, I can be glad in this moment. How are you glad living over there? Because I'm living here. You understand what I'm saying? I knew someone who lost their home and they ended up having to go back and they ended up living in a mansion. They were like, I'm living with my parents. I'm like, in a mansion? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Who loses their house and moves into a mansion? Well, I didn't want to be there. I just want you to think about what you just said. Think about it for a moment. And once you think about it, I didn't want this car. You got a car? Because I know folks that do 3-hour rides on MARTA to get to work. 3 hours there, 3 hours back. They get up at 4, they leave by 5, they get to work by 9. So that's really a 4-hour journey. But so you say, I got this junky car. No, you got a car. but these things must be. And it's like not necessarily being content in where you are, but being content in knowing that God will fulfill the promise in your life. So where you are, it probably must be. That's the first. That's the second point I want to make. Remember when Jesus told the disciples, hold on, where is that at? That is Mark 8:33 and Matthew 16:23, when Jesus had spoken to him and told him that, it says he showed his disciples that he was going to be questioned and suffer. He's going to go talking to the elders, the priests, the legal experts, and he's going to be killed and resurrected. He told his disciples that. And I think Peter said, no, Lord, that won't happen. And he said, get thee behind me, Satan. And everybody goes, get thee behind me, Satan. Yeah, because I'm like, no. What he was saying is, these things must be for this to happen. In order for what this death and resurrection means, these things have to happen. So I'm not cursing it. So just do with that as you will. But I'm just take that. But also I want to say this. That also, and it's the jump, tells you to be mindful of who speaks in your life. And I'm not talking about Peter. I'm talking about the fact that Jesus was going to have to answer questions to the elders, the priests, the legal experts. All the people who were the authority were the ones that he was going to be turned over to. So just because somebody is in authority, or you think, well, this person is an authority figure, or this person is the know, or these are the ones to know. No. You just along the way. And when they were questioning Jesus, they were questioning his defense. How dare you heal? How dare you do that? Who are you to forgive sins? All of those things. And so the people in the know just didn't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? They didn't know who Jesus was, or they wouldn't recognize, but more importantly, I think they couldn't recognize who he was because they were so indoctrinated into their way of thinking. And it's like, we have a vision of who the Messiah is going to be. Well, I got that, and I appreciate your vision as to who the Messiah must be, but me being the Messiah, I'd like to let you know I'm not those things. I'm something different. So when people are speaking into your life, and this applies beyond just simply the day-to-day, just spiritual and the other things, this could apply to anything in your life. I went to Food Addicts, and I had a friend of mine who I was talking to this week, but I related to them this story. I went to this thing that back during my weight loss journey, and I remember people were speaking, and every person that got up there and spoke that I heard, I'd say 95%, talked about trauma in their lives. And it was always like, for the most part, it was mothers. They were always like, my mother said this, my mother treated me that. Everybody had my parents did this to me story. Not just abuse, just the words, how they made them feel, the meaning. All of them had these stories, and they manifested itself in overeating. And I was like, that's an amazing, I was like, I don't got that story, but I'm in the same boat. We all fat. They were actually not fat anymore, quite honestly. They had achieved their goal. I was there to try to achieve mine. It didn't work out for me. I had to drop that program. But I realized sometimes people have spoken things in your life who were the authority figures in your life, who were put in positions over you, or they just were. Parent, grandparent, aunt, super. Doesn't matter. I'm not negating it. I'm just simply saying, when they didn't recognize the God in you and their duties to fulfill their purpose in your life, you can disregard what they had to say about you. Like, I feel bad about myself because I was told this. Who told you that? My mother. Then she was acting improperly and speaking outside of the scope of her authority. Period. If I give you dental advice, you would be foolish to take it because I'm a lawyer. Well, Kirby Jr.'s father is a dentist. Yeah, my dad is a dentist. I am not one. When I was a kid in the 5th grade, we used to talk about your father's a dentist. What do you know about it? We'd ask me the teeth questions. I'd be making it up. Like, oh yeah, what you do is you can use this. This other kid, his name, I think his name was Danny, if I'm not mistaken. I live in Duxbury, Massachusetts, and I never forget that. His dad was a dentist, and my dad was a dentist. And so the kids would be asking us different questions as if we knew, but we didn't know. But they took what we said like we were dentists. 5th grade dentists. Go figure that one. And sometimes we would always have differing opinions. Why? Because we were just making it up anyway. But my point is, if someone in an authority position, or that you look up to, or should look up to, or expect to look up to, spoken in your life things of limitation, well, overcome that. Because when I say overcome it, I don't mean, I'm not that. No, they were just wrong. You can literally just disregard that. You've come to a point, this day must be. You've come to a point in your life now where if you didn't know it, I'm telling you, if you said the wrong things to me, you committed whatever, I'll call it malpractice. You committed parental malpractice or elder malpractice or supervisor malpractice or whatever type of malpractice it is, such that I don't have to get closure with you. I don't got to reconcile, because people, they put a lot of things in closure. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I got to have closure. What kind of closure do you expect? Like a movie? Like, you're going to tell them how they made you feel, and they're going to be like, tears, and they're going to be like, I'm so sorry, I know you felt that way, and then you're going to hug it out, and you're going to walk away like, oh, burden has been lifted. No, that's not going to happen at all. I mean, if it does happen, I applaud you, but that's typically not the story. If you acted wrong to me then, you probably thought you were right then, and you probably still think you're right now. But I can tell you right now, you were wrong then and you're wrong now. But rather than me telling you that, I got to tell myself that this thing must be. I need to today settle it in myself that what you said that caused me to doubt me, what you said that caused me to doubt God, what you said that caused me to not see my potential, it wasn't your place to do that. You were here to guide me. And maybe you provided the DNA that gives rise to this. But this in here and this in here and where I go, the scope of where I go, you have zero control over that. And I may have let you have control over that. But now I realize that's between me and God. And this must be, whether you tell it to them, and if they're dead, you can't tell it to them. So I'm just telling you now, tell it to yourself. And don't let the perceptions of what you perceived and felt when you were younger and not wise to the ways of the world, and not wise just as you mature, as you grow older. Sometimes we still process things through that childhood lens, but you're going to have to stop there for a moment and just say, hold on. I was a kid perceiving that, and I perceived it with the kid, and I learned it, and I learned lessons that a child would learn. And I carry those lessons into adulthood like they are legitimate lessons. And no, they're not. They were lessons. That was just you living. But now that you're grown, you are empowered to take over yourself. You can look back over your past and say, you know what? I reject that. And outright reject it. And it's like, is that going to work? Well, we're going to find out. But have you ever rejected it? Have you ever just said out loud what someone had said to you that you felt hurt you, limited you, and just said it out loud? I mean, and I said, look in the mirror, say it, feel it, and then disavow it. It has no power. I'm walking away from that. No more. That thought comes to my wife will tell you, when I'm driving, if I have a thought that I don't like, I'll literally shake my head. What are you doing? Shake it out of my head, because I have to do a physical thing to tell myself to forget this. Like, no. Somebody said this, I'll shake my head. Like, hey, is it scaring you? No, it's not scaring me. I am just saying, I don't even have to rationalize this. I don't got to think. It's like trash. Who goes through that garbage a second time? You know what I'm saying? Like, here's the thing, unless you're recycling, but I'm just saying otherwise, you throw it in a trash can, it's in the trash can. You don't, let me go through here again. And, should I throw this away? No. When I determine it's garbage, never to be looked at again. I take it and I throw it away. And that's how we got to do with some people who spoke in our lives. Those people are in authority. Because these things must be. And what must be is you must recognize that the only being that can determine your path on your life, the course of your events, is God. Period. That is the only one who can bring it to pass. That is the only one who can stop it. Other people can get in your way, but you know what? God said X, and I'm walking on X, and I'm expecting X to happen. Now, I don't know what X looks like, but I'll know it when I see it. Like we use this example in the law. If I ask you a question and you said, hey, I was robbed by somebody and you've never seen them before. And what was their name? I don't know. What was their skin complexion? I don't know. You don't know those things. But then if somebody else comes along and says, hey, about how tall were they? I can't give you an example. I'm not good with height, but if you had to just give me something. But they're about medium height. Does anybody here know what medium height is? Nobody knows. What was their complexion? But they were like a medium complexion. I just think about it. Okay, what was their hair? Brownish. Okay. Nobody here has an idea what that person looks like. But if you saw them again, you know exactly who they were. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. You gotta think about it that way. I may not be able to tell you what it looks like, but I'll recognize it when I see it. And I don't got to convince you what it looks like. It's not important for you. I mean, I'm glad if you want to support me and pray for me, good. I want that. But just because my goal is not to convince you, my goal is to remain convinced and to keep moving in that direction. That's the point I want to make. Now, I jumped ahead of myself. I'm sorry. Then I had the whole, I was doing with all the events going on this week, I was listening to, looking at the news, and I was like, man, wars, rumors of wars, people fighting. Matthew chapter 24, what is it? Many will come in my name saying I'm the Christ, not Jesus. They were wars, rumors, don't be, all the bad stuff that's coming out, which I look around and I'm going, man, I'm hearing all this stuff now. I'm hearing everything. And I'm like, ooh, well, the God, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, I heard the Bible say that people are going to say stuff in his name, but I just didn't really believe it. But now I'm hearing it. And I'm like, whoa, you thought that Jesus, I really read, I saw something where they said, thought Jesus, this preacher was preaching the Beatitudes, I think it was. And they were like, what's all that left-wing stuff you talking about? I'm like, the Jesus word? We don't want that taught in church. Yeah, God forbid you say what Jesus said in church. But I'm just saying, I thought, could this be the people who come in his name and say that we are the Christ, or we are from the Christ, or we are serving the Christ, who are not? I don't know. I mean, I think yes, that's just me. But you don't want to get in my head, because I would just say this where my head is. I was up at 3:51 this morning, and I was wondering, suppose cats were like dogs. Even the big cats, like people walking around with pet leopards. Them things are dangerous. I mean, I'm just saying, like, you can fight a dog off, but you can't fight a leopard off. That's what I was thinking in my head at 3:51 in the morning. So don't ever ask me where I'm thinking in my head, because you'd be great. Elevators, just another point. Is there an elevator showroom? Like, when you go to the elevator and they got the shiny walls, or they got the brown walls and the marble walls. Did they pick that out? You ever ask yourself that? No, you didn't ask yourself that until you heard me ask it right now, because that's how my mind works. So it's a scary place to be sometimes. It's fun to be. But anyway, I just want to say that to you, that don't let what's happening now cause you to be alarmed. Because if you are honestly seeking the Lord, whatever else is going around, these things must be. Jesus said it. These things must be. Lord, they're doing this. They're saying this. They're talking about they're going to get all that. You watch the news and it's like, people are we about to fight? Is there about to be a civil war? What's going on? And it's like, oh, people are uncomfortable. They're tense. And I'm like, these things must be. But God said, hold on. So I recognize that fact. And it's easy to get caught up in we're going to get them. They were wrong. It's easy. It's easy. Trust me, as someone who likes to debate, I go in there. I'm like, oh, I'm in heaven now. We are debating. I don't care. Well, I'm not even mad. I'm just having fun. People say, I'm like, you can say the most insulting thing to me, and I'm not even fazed, because I'm in it for the game. I'm the player who loves the game. But I realized for some, it can be overwhelming. For some, it can make you just really hesitant and concerned and lead to stress and tension. These things must be. But the Lord has spoken in his word. The Bible, I got to say, I look at it and I'm like, man, so much of what, and I'm a guy who really examines stuff. And I'm like, did this really happen? Let me just check it out. I ask all the crazy questions, because I feel like if I can't ask the question, because they'll say that shows a lack of faith. I said, but it doesn't show no faith. And the Lord said, you got faith is the size of a grain of a mustard seed. So if my question shows a little faith, that's okay. I still got it. But I got to ask this question. And if I don't ask this question, then I'm just denying what's in front of me and just trying to be super spiritual. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be confident. I want you to walk in confidence, to just say, I can look back on my life now. And like I told you at the very beginning, these things that I've experienced in the past have prepared me for this. However unusual that was, it prepared me for this. And that was God manifesting himself in your life. And you say, well, I said, what are the odds? Somebody would say, what are the odds? We all experience stuff. I go, we all experience stuff. But when you experience something so specific that you're like, I remember, I know, I can call, that was your steps being ordered. And so now you're there. So right now, in all of this calamity, all of these, whatever, the political machinations, the horrific things that are going on, these things must be. But the word of God will be. Do you understand what I'm saying? It will happen. The pronouncements in your life will be. So that's really sort of all I wanted to say to you, is that these things must be, and that which will be is whatever the Lord has declared in your life. Period. Full stop. End of story. And don't sell it short by figuring out how you think it's going to manifest. Just know one day I'm going to be walking in it. And just like when I said before, I can't tell you how tall or how long or the hair or the age, but I know it when I see it. That's where we're going to be. And just that level of, and you say that doesn't give me great confidence, but it gives me any confidence. Because if it does, cling to that. Because your other option is to be moorless, floating around, freaking out, chasing after everything. I'm gonna hold on to what I know. The God who got me to here is the God who's gonna get me there. And they say, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. I'm like, he ain't brought me to where I'm supposed to be anyway yet. So I'm like, I don't believe that we are there yet, is my version of the song. Like, I don't believe we are there yet, is my song. And so, but we're on the way. And all the stuff that you see, it must be. Even the things that I think shouldn't be. Now, I also was listening to several videos about whether free will was a true thing. I love those types of philosophical discussions. Is free will a thing or not? And I was like, well, I encourage you to listen to it, but it can blow your mind at times, and it's very interesting. But I know this much: we can question free will, but don't doubt God, because He's never let you down. It just may not have ended up like you visualized it, but it wasn't your vision. It was just it was a word to you to hold on to until the promise was fulfilled. But you couldn't have promised yourself that. Good measure, pressed down, shaking together, running over. Nobody ever thought that would happen to you. Like, what does that even mean? But when you get it, you'll know. That's all I want to say. These things must be, but some things will be. Thank you all very much. I'm going to end the stream. End. All right.